Now let's take a look at doing some inlay work. As I told you at the end of the last video, I was going to take you through cutting points. First thing we're going to do is take a look at building a point blank like this, with the 4 points put in, little inlay work on the bottom. These are just standard V-groove points. That's what we're going to look at first. I'm going to show you a couple of different methods of cutting the actual groove in these, and then I'll show you how to glue it up. So if we're going to get it done, we better get going. Okay, now I'm going to show you what you have to do to set your router up to cut in. First thing I did was I offset the tailstock back about 400 thousandths or 380 thousandths, nearly a little over 3/8 of an inch for cutting a 4-pointer. You just have to figure out what offset you like. Some people never go more than 1/4 of an inch offset, so it really doesn't matter to me how you do it. But first thing I want to do is take my pencil and come back here, line my indexing head up, move it out here, line it up over the hole. I want to mark the first hole I'm going to use. I have 24 positions here, so I'm going to go to 6, go to 6 more, go to 6 more, and I'm putting a little pencil mark where it'll wipe off. If you have a watercolor marker or something would be fine. You just don't want to put a permanent mark on there because those might not be the ones you want to use next time. Now I have tilted this router down at a 45-degree angle and lined the corner of the bit up with the center here, so I should be centered. It's better to use 14-inch piece of wood whenever you're cutting. That way, when you come back in here, you only come back so far and stop. Then you can put the wood in. You still have your good center point on both ends. You turn it down after you've glued it in. You band it up, turn it down after you've let the glue dry, and then you chop it off. Part this off, face it off, and then you're ready to start joining it to a handle. So let's go ahead and turn a point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all 4 points. You could fix up a carriage stop some kind of way, or make a little stop here that would run into the front of your carriage, and that would take care of your problem of knowing how deep you got to go. Well, I'm going to run 4 points right quick. You want to come out and start, down this last couple of inches and go in, then you're going to do several passes. So go ahead and put me a line around here. Now that's where I want to come to. I want to come all the way out to that line. Then I will go a little beyond that line and do one pass, but never move my cross slide. I'll show you on that here in just a minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and start here. Turn it on. We'll go in. cut that point almost to the depth I'm going to do the last one. I'm just going to do one little cleanup pass. Alright, now I want to turn it. Go to the next mark, lock in the indexing. I'd already partially cut that point when I was setting up a few minutes ago. Okay. Back out. Keep wanting to turn the motor on. That'd be a big mistake. Throw something out of line. Okay. Now I've done that point. What I want to do now, grab my power feed. You don't have to cut it with your power feed. Really don't make much difference either way. I'm going to cut this on the fast speed. Plug my power feed unit in. You know, on a big lathe, unless if you're using the head of it as an indexer, the way the particular power feeds work on those big lathes, you can't really do this. Spin around, and I'll cut all of the points like that. I'll do one last pass. I won't touch the dial, I'll leave it set right where it is. Do one last pass on each point. Instead of sliding it, I'm just going to let it roll back up through there. Back that one up and then cut the next one. Well, that's got the grooves cut. They should all be even. Loosen it, spin it around a second. Get this up here out of the way. It's pretty good. This is not the easiest cutting wood in the world. It was zebra wood. But I've kind of got away from myself putting the points in this way because it's a little more trouble. You got to try to hold evenness and so on the front of the points. I'll cover another way of cutting them in just a second. You take you some pieces and you check your angle. So my angle's a little wider than a 90 there. So I'll need to take these and put them on a sander and just slightly raise one edge and get them. There's still some hand fitting to do with these. I'll basically wind up with a piece that looks like this. when I'm ready to turn it down. You'll have a piece that looks like that, all glued up. Smart thing to do is take the bandsaw and split these in half, not waste so much wood. You can even cut your pieces of wood at an angle like this, to where you have triangles. These right here were taken off the outside of a 1.5 by 1.5, and I just cut the corners off, and I was still able to use that 1.5 piece for a forearm. And then I have these point pieces to lay down in here. So if you buy your wood a little oversized, sometimes you can rob points off of the corner and still have the wood. Okay, I want to just take one of my tool bits, just kind of go out down the bottom of those. Make sure that bottom corner is really plain. Okay, now I've cleaned out the bottom. I want to put these on there because that angle it only like just a little bit, see, just right. So I'm putting just a little pressure toward the center to make up for that wide part. I don't want to see a space along here. Just a little bit. It won't take much. Okay, that point is ready. Set it aside and grab one of the other ones. Grab all three of the other ones. Let's hand work those in. Same thing, now if you wanted to put colored veneers down in here, what you do is make you a press with 2 pieces of metal or Delrin, something that won't stick to. Press, like if you're going to use 3 veneers, press them together. Then take them on your saw and cut them up into strips. Say 1/2 inch wide strips. Then after you cut it up in those 1/2 inch wide strips, take and set you a bandsaw on an angle, 45-degree angle, run them through there and just put a 45 on each side. Then come over here on this and just lightly sand them until you get them to where they'll fit in both ways. Then you can lay them down in there. You'll really put the glue to it, press them in, and then put the wood behind it. Glue it all at once like that. Or another way is you can actually rubber band this up and glue them to the outside of these while you're doing it. You can go ahead and glue them to the pieces of wood before you put it into the cube. Okay. I'm going to work those just a minute. I won't waste the time continuing to sand those. Okay, all I did to get this router up at a 45 was take my regular bracket that goes to the side of the router, attach another bracket to it, and then screw it into the side. Just made a little V bracket like that. Just something to raise it up. Now you can also use this same type of thing to raise your router up to where you can tilt it straight down and cut with a 3-wing cutter to cut shafts and such. I prefer to go in from the side when I'm cutting butts, especially because it allows me to go ahead and cut the route groove. But the 3-wing cutter cuts a little smoother, so it's a trade-off. And you can't turn your work quite as fast as you can with this. So you have a trade-off either way you want to go with it. What I'm going to do now is show you a little simpler method to cut the points in, or simpler to set up. It's not really simpler. Once you get going, either way is fine. You go straight in from the side. Okay, now what I have is a V V-groove bit. And this V-groove bit has been special ground where it will actually give you a sharp corner in the bottom, or real close. It'll do just about as good as the other one we just worked with. Okay. Plastic gets in the way at times, but it sure is nice to keep the stuff out of your eyes. Okay. What we want to do now is take this up there. Might be a little difficult with it offset, but we'll get over there eventually. Take my bar feed out. I want to run this up there and get that bit to where it's on the center. How I do that is I just line the center of that bit kind of relieve this tool post just a little bit. Okay, we do the same process here. We go straight in from the side, we get our bit lined up, we lock it in. Laid it out of there real good. I went to the line. I'm going to just go ahead and cut the other ones without running the video and wasting the film. Well, we went back in, cut them all, and then we went and did the one pass in each one of them and screwed them up. So there's what we have. So I want to do the same thing here. Take one of my tools. crack set up a little bit. You have to be more careful than I was being there. Okay. Now I'm going to take some of the pieces, see what I want to glue down in there. See, I can see my too wide, so I'll have to put my board up there and sand them just like before. This bit doesn't get you quite as close to the corner as the 45 bit, so I think I would rather do it with the 45 tilting it down, but I will tell you it takes probably 10 minutes to set that 45 one up. It's a little harder to set up than this one. This one will take more hand sanding to match it all up. Okay, now what you're going to need to put these points in, some glue. I've got some Tight Bond, Franklin Tight Bond glue. Going to really slop it in there. Really put the glue to the holes. Now if you're doing flat bottom inlays, you want to use epoxy to glue it in. Just really put the glue to it. You're also going to have some surgical tubing. Go to a medical supply place. I would get a few different sizes. They'll sell it by the foot at most of them. Or you may have to buy a roll. Okay. I want to work these points in there. Laid me some wax paper out here. I'm going to wrap this up in that wax paper before I put any pressure on it. This Tight Bond, you can feel it grabbing already. It's pretty good stuff. I don't know, there may be better wood glues out there, but I haven't experimented with everything, so I just kind of, if I have something that works, I keep on with it, like the Duro Quick Gel. I've had a bunch of people tell me they found better glue, and then I've had people tell me about the same glues and then tell me that they think that that's better. So, I don't know, maybe somebody has a tip pop off with one and they think that that makes it worse or better than the next one. I don't know what. Really putting the pressure to these sides. Now I'm going to take this and start winding it. I always start winding in the middle, and then I'll run out. Do you think this won't tire you out? This is worse than having to tap fuse. You wouldn't believe how much pressure this stuff pulls down on that. This is how I glue my inlays in. This is how I glue my points in. Everything that I glue into a cue is glued under pressure. Unless it happens to be a small round piece of silver or something that just pops right down in a hole that's been drilled there. Well, I've missed tying that off twice. See if I get it this time. Yep. Now, we have glued in 4 points. We've cut the grooves. We've glued it. Then later we'll have to come back and turn it down, chop it off, attach it to a handle. I want to show you how to put a butt together like this right here. You can see this is cut to a tenon, and this slips over just like a ferrule, so there's no reason to go into that. You see how this is drilled out, spaced, so on. I do like to take and drill a smaller hole through this, like 11/16 hole if I'm going with a 3/4 tenon. Put it in here and run a boring bar through it to true it up to a perfect 3/4. That way I know it's real concentric. It goes on the cue good. Now, as you can see, these points stop here. So that's basically what I have here is some points that have been turned down. You stick this through, or out here through your steady rest, either way. I drill a 5/8 hole. Or you can drill a little under, whatever size you want, run in with your boring bar. Then you know it's true. Then you take your handle and you cut a tenon on it. You get it to where it'll go up in there fairly snug. Then you drill and tap. I do it all at the same time. You've drilled in here for it to handle a 3/8/16. That'll handle a 3/8/16. And you drilled in here for 3/8/16. So the cue actually bolts together here in the middle. Now a little trick I like to do, because I don't leave a hollow spot in the middle of my cue like most cue makers do. Most cue makers have an air pocket inside here. I don't do that. I take a jigsaw and I go up inside my screw hole there. And I notch it a couple. That way I have a notch running down the side. I have me a glue relief. Now I'm not notching into the side of the cue, just inside the threaded area. That's all I'm notching into. So I have made me a glue relief. So now when I run this in there, the glue will come back out. Something else I do. I run up through here and run me a groove or two up the side of this tenon. I want there to be some glue relief there. You can do it with your utility knife. You can notch a little groove out there. One or two is enough. Just be sure you don't notch it right even with the others. Now I'm getting me a nice little groove up through there. I have that groove. See, those two are not in line with it. Now when I put that cue together, I'll use thin epoxies. Like the West system. The West system is real expensive, but it's a thin epoxy. The Evercoat marine epoxy is thin, so it lets all of that glue come out. I fill this hole completely up with glue. I pour it completely full, I run my screw down in there. Now I try to measure my distance to where this screw will stop and still leave a little bit to go into the forearm. Then I take and pour this forearm to where the glues come way up in this tenon hole. I make sure that that screw hole is full down there. And then the cue is screwed together like that. And that is how you put a butt together. And you're ready to do a turn down it. If your points start running out, fill in your center hole up here with some wood filler, and then start tapping it over on the live center and running it until you get it to where all of these points turn out even. If you go with Pantograph points, like I'm going to show you how to put in, then you don't have to go through all that misery of trying to center the points up. Since they're a flat bottom, they will always be centered. Talk you through a couple more things here. You see, these are square on the bottom. All you do is put a straight bit in your router, and you run a pass down this and cut that groove, and then you cut you some wood to lay down in there at that thickness. See, and then you can chop it up into little decoration pieces. If you want to make a stitch joint ring, how you see all the little lines, what you do is take with your router, get an 1/8 inch adapter and some small end mills. Put them in here and run you some small lines down it. And then lay your material in there, get you some wood veneers and cut it up into strips. Glue them down there, band it up just like I showed you a minute ago. And then you take and turn the whole thing round, stick it through your chuck, drill out a little bit, and start with your cut-off tool, chopping them off. You can even lay silver in that way, which is what I've started doing on my cues. There's a lot of neat things you can do with just the router without the inlay. You could take, here, if you had already cut a piece like this, you could slip that on there and cap the end of it with, like if these were black, you could cap the end of it with black, and it would give you some rectangles. You could even saw pieces of ivory up into straight pieces like this. Lay them down in there, not at an angle, but straight down. And then you could have nice rectangles right here. You can take your router, you can drill holes in here. You could actually drill a 9-ball rack using the indexing back here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, just drilling holes. And then take your lathe here and turn you some ivory down, or whatever material you're wanting to use, turn it down into circles and lay them in there. You could actually make diamonds out of circles, and there's all kind of stuff you can do. You can really severely offset your tailstock. Come down here with a short piece like this at a severe angle and cut a really wide point for the bottom. I'm sure you've seen cues done that way. Another way of making points is to put a straight bit in here and have the router running straight. Turn the cue the other way to where your taper bar goes and actually cut a flat spot on the side of the cue, 4 flat spots. Then lay wood up on top of them, and what that'll give you is what's called a butterfly point. They'll be rounded when they come off. They won't be a sharp point like these V-grooves. I'm sure you've seen some of the old Brunswicks and stuff with those rounded points. Dennis Diekman makes a nice cue. He's probably one of the better butterfly cue makers in the country, or in the world maybe even. If I didn't go into the point situation well enough, if you want a little more detail on how to put the veneers in, which is he has a video, I think it runs $100, you can get it from Atlas Billiards, and it'll show you how to put the veneers in. He'll actually do it on the video, and he'll show you one way, if you didn't catch on to what I was telling you. We need to move on and do some pantograph work, or pantomill work. And that's where we need to go from here and get serious about this inlay and show you how to put a few diamonds in and such as that. Well, let's take a look at what all we're going to need to do some inlay work now. Cutting diamonds. We're going to need our little milling table. And what it does is mounts on top of your cross slide. So you turn your cross slide into a milling table. Like I've got a pantograph here that I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars it would cost. New, it's an old pantograph that I do a little pattern making on and used to inlay my cues on before I got this machine. So you have you know, your little square nuts, just like you can load this thing from the front just move your cross slide back a little to where you can get these nuts down in the front. Now I'll lock that down. What I do with this, so I've got my piece of ivory here. All the ivory, you know, I don't do anything with any illegal ivory. I make sure that it's all coming from reputable sources. And it's all old. I don't want green ivory either. I'm told that most of this ivory is around 30 years old or older. Could even be older. So I want to take and wedge this ivory down. Okay, now see, I can move back and forth, in and out. You might be saying, well, how in the world are you going to cut inlays in with that laid down there flat? What are you going to use to cut it with? Well, that's what I'm going to show you. This is my Q-Man inlay machine. It took me a few years to finally work all the bugs out and get an inlay machine that you could really inlay cues with. I had worked with arms and tried to work out the bugs to mount it on a lathe, and this is solid enough to do it. See, if I move that, the whole lathe moves, and it works. One of the two cues I showed you at the end of the other video, the one with the 3 diamonds in a row on the bottom, the 3 diamonds that were made off this pattern, had this one in the middle, that one above it, and then that one also below it. That cue was made with this set of patterns right here. When you get your pantograph from me, you get a set of patterns. You'll have a diamond, another diamond, an oval, and 2 other diamonds, unless I change my mind on what we're going to do. And you're going to get a point. Now you notice this, like on this point pattern, this one was cut on a computer, and I made these other ones up myself. Hopefully I'm going to be able to continue getting my patterns made up with the guy that has the computer machine to cut them in. Because then I can do computer quality inlay work on a manual pantograph, because it basically boils down to how good are your patterns. Well, you see you have a V groove here. And on these patterns here, there's a V groove here. Now you want to keep this greased up good to where it will rotate. So I'll spray a little WD-40 on it. And I have my stylus is a 60-degree stylus, and it just rides in this V groove. So what I will do is I will center my cutting tool. I'm using a Dremel tool that will turn 30,000 rounds per minute. It actually cuts better than my large Gorton Pantograph. Just roll move the ivory around underneath it till you get it positioned where you want it, and then you cut it. And you see? Now I basically only use 2 bits and just a few styluses to do all. I have the stylus there with the point on it. And then on the back of it, I've cut another one. It's a hogging stylus, about 250 thousandths. That's for hogging stuff out. On this one, I've got a 172. I would take, before I started doing any inlay work, I would cut me off some pieces of stainless like this. This is 3/8 stainless rod. Make them out of stainless to where they're good and hard, but you still want to be able to machine it, so don't get hardened material. You can use regular cold roll steel, heat it up really hot, and then drop it in water and it'll harden it. But you're running against brass and aluminum and wood or whatever you make your templates out of, if you decide to make some of your own besides the one I give you. This stainless is plenty tough enough to hold up a long time. I would go in and make me some styluses starting at about 150, 155, 160, 165, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 200. That range should get you to where you can fit all of your inlays. Now, you have a up and down adjustment. This gives you your depth when you're using your tool. And on the back, you have another thousandths adjustment to get you centered where you want to be on your work. Now, for cutting parts out, I cut all of my parts with a 1/16 inch end mill. So I like to just pop it off of there. I'll take my, you have a quick collet on this Dremel. It's really nice. The old Dremels weren't such a good tool, but these new ones are a super tool. These tools run out just a few thousandths. Then you have a little thing right there, you can just tighten it down. But I make up, it's a consistent run out. The other Dremel tools, before they changed the way it internally was built, had too much run out for me. So you don't want this quite as loose as that is, so I want to come in here and snug up one of the jibs on the side. Maybe not that tight. There we go. That'll get me up and down pretty easy. And I've got my back and forth one. That back and forth doesn't get moved very much, so you definitely don't want your router, or the Dremel router, to or the tool, cutting tool, whatever you want to call it, start moving. So you want to snug all that stuff up pretty good. I also recommend that you really grease your rods down good with some WD-40 or something before you start. See how I'm just inside the V-groove, going around here, I'm cutting diamonds out. Now when I start cutting through this ivory, I'm not going to quite cut all the way through it. I'm going to go to where there's like a paper thin stem, 4 or 5 thousandths, something like that on the bottom, and I'm going to leave it. And the reason I'm going to do that is to where I don't have that part knocking out on me. So I'm going right to the edge. I'm adjusting that ivory to where it's right on the edge. And this is the one thing that's hard to do, is to get in here with your hand and tighten that thumb screw down, but you need to do that. You need to tighten it down to where this carriage don't move right or left while you're cutting. I recommend going 1/4 of a turn at a time. That's 12.5 thousandths. around 12.5 thousandths. Now I'm kind of helping this carriage back here with my left hand. That way I don't ram against the end. Gives me a little more control using both hands. You might want to go ahead and clear your corner before you go down. Now, I don't cut my ivory thin. Some people want their ivory to be only about 1/10 of an inch thick. And they use these little end mills that won't let them get in there. So when they put a wide inlay like those diamonds I put in, they start turning little milky colored or gray on the edge because they're starting to be translucent. So I really lay my inlays thick. This ivory here is probably better than 3/16 of an inch thick. That's what I shoot for when I'm cutting my inlay material out, 3/16, about 180 thousandths. Blow it out once in a while and see what you got. 12.5 more thousandths. If you thought this was fast work, well, it's not. This is one of the slower things in cue work, but it's what makes a $300 cue a $1,000 cue. I built that one cue I showed you last night, or the two cues. The nicer of the two, the one that had the more silver and the kind of fancy shape, I built it in another cue and took them to the show. I wound up selling the other one to a cue collector. He figures he will retail that cue for about $4,000. I did give him a little discount off of that where he could make him some money on it. If you had a little air hose, it would be good. I normally have a little air right there with me all the time. Guess I was just too lazy to bring my compressor over here. Looks like I still got a bottom in there. When it starts being translucent, I want to stop. That's not always the easiest thing to figure either. Sometimes I'll let an inlay pop out. Sometimes I'll break a bit because of letting an inlay pop out. It's starting to show through now, so I want to stop it. I want to raise the bit up out of it and go over and cut another diamond out. I just cut one ivory diamond out, one of the big ones. So I'll reposition my table. Now when you're cutting diamonds, there's a certain way you want to lay them out there to where you get the most out of your ivory. Okay, I've already went ahead and cut a couple of those out. See, here is how you get the most use out of your diamonds. Then I've still got room. I can come on up in here and get some little circles and, you know, small inlays. I could cut a small little diamond out there. But I'm cutting this size diamond here. I've already cut 3 through. Finish the last one with this close-up on it. I really can't get the right angle and get in here with the camera. $12,500. $12,500 more thousand. $12,500 more thousand. Kind of guiding it with my hand and keeping pressure with my fingers there. $12,500. This is basically a direct imaging pantograph. Move it up here, it's moving the multi-pro cutting tool at the same time. I could slow this down and take 25 thousandths a cut, but I have a feeling I would be breaking more bits. And I'm one that just likes to go on and move. I don't like the patience of sitting there having to fight with a bit that's really not doing it. That's dragging, you know, you go too fast because you'll break the bit. With my large Gordon pantograph, I was breaking bits all of the time, but it would only create 15,000 RPMs. This thing is coming along at 30,000. 30,000 RPMs. Going that fast, you have very little cutter resistance. So I have to keep looking to see when I start, when it starts getting transparent on the bottom, then I want to stop. I don't want to go on through. Sometimes you can hear the parts start to vibrate. If you hear that, you know you've punched through somewhere. Call it quits. Turn it off. Let it stop. and raise it up. Okay. Take my stylus out where I can slide this down out of the way. Now you can see the parts that have been cut up. Move them over to where they're in. See how the milling table just moves around under there? Just wherever you want it to go to. This is one of the most fun parts about cube building, is doing the inlay work. It's one of the few places that you really get to use your imagination much, you know, for designing and all. It's when you start decorating the cube. See how you can actually see through. See, there's the back side. How I punch through. Now take my knife. See how I punched it out and it's got the little raggedy stuff. I just kind of knock that off. Just enough to get rid of that sharp edge and that stuff that's hanging off. Now if I really want a real sharp edge, these are pretty good. I can just take and touch them on my little sanding block. And just poke it through. And had a good bit right there, just break that off. If you don't get rid of that, you might have a hard time seating it down into your pocket once you cut your pocket. So even as thick as that one was, you could almost not see through it. It popped right out. Little Swiss Army knife has been one of the handiest things. My brother gave it to me as a gift a long time ago, and I managed to hold on to it several years. Now I use it for a lot of stuff. It has my screwdriver on it, and so on. Something else you want to be sure and do is mark the top of the part. Called the wrong end, the top on that one. Should do this before you pop them out. That way you always know which way they go. And it wouldn't hurt if you really want to do right is mark one end of them. Mark the end, the left hand end or the right hand end, and only mark that end. Then you know which way the inlay goes in. Take your file, just clean up the four edges. If you thought you weren't going to have to do any hand work because you had an inlay machine, a little bit more to it than that. That's why these cues are still considered hand built. You're moving all of the machinery, you know, the mechanism by hand in order to put it in. Now, if you want to leave these sharp on the corners and put them into the cue like that, it's a lot more work to have to do it, or you have to cut your pocket into the cue a little larger. Now, I'm not one that likes to just go straight in and cut into the cue and see if I get a good fit or not. What I do is I take another piece of wood, mount it on here, cut me a pocket into it, get it to where it's fitting like I want it, know the right stylus, then I go and put it in the cue. I make a lot less mistakes that way. Okay, I put me a piece of wood in here. I just put a piece of Purple Heart. It's one of the less expensive woods, not as expensive as putting ebony or something like that in for a piece of test wood. Maple would even be better if I had it, something even a little cheaper. So I want to switch the patterns here. Your patterns may come as two separate ones like this, or you may have this part put in on the back side of one. Okay. We're going to lock this pattern down. You notice this pattern is hollow in the middle. This is the pattern you cut your pocket in with. I showed you how to cut a part out. Now you can also cut parts out with this, but you have to have a steady hand and take it slow. If you want to put a 70,000th stylus in there and cut a part out with it, you can certainly do it. The only advantage to that with cutting it with this is, let's say you wanted to put a small diamond inside another diamond. Then you could go in with a big stylus like this 250,000th stylus, or a different one, whatever it takes. You'd have to figure out your styluses. You go around in there, and that lets you cut out you just outline and cut out the middle, or cut out a part. And then you step up to your 60,000th stylus and you cut that out, and what you'll have is a diamond within a diamond. And then you can put the small diamond in the middle of it. So you could figure all of that out and get it down to a science. It's just a matter of playing with your stylus sizes and deciding what you like and so on. I am going to go ahead, and since I got that 16th bit in here, I'm going to go ahead and hog the middle out. That's backwards. Normally you should outline it, outline the part, and then hog it out. But I'm going to have to do some testing, so just back and forth. I can get by with taking about 50. I mean, 125, excuse me, half a turn. So I outline it, and then I go and clean up what's left in the middle. Okay. I might should have went ahead and outlined that first. Okay, to get ready to outline, take this out. Got that screw pretty tight there because I don't want it moving on me. Loosen that up. Might even be a good idea to put a thumb screw in that particular one there, because you want to be able to loosen it. Take this out and then put it back in rather frequently. Okay, hold down on your thumb button here. Here's your variable speed. Here's, not supposed to do that. Okay, now we're going to go to the 35 thousandths cutter. That means we have to change collets. Make sure there's no dust. See, this is a 16th collet, holding a 16th bit. I mean, it's a 16th shoulder on the bit, but the actual cutter diameter is 35 thousandths. But I can go all the way down to about a 1/4 inch with this one. And your 32nd end mills, you only gain nearly 4 thousandths on your cut. But the bad part is you lose a huge amount of cutting ability. It drops your cutting ability way down. You can only go so deep, so it's a trade-off. Need to spray a little WD-40 in my slot here because I don't want to put any excess wear on my patterns. These patterns are made out of brass, so they should last a long time. Okay. Tighten this screw back up. Just like I'm cutting a part out. On a simple shape like this, putting a diamond inside of a diamond would be no problem. This cuts so much quicker this way, you may decide that you would rather cut all of your parts out at the out with this also. Just make you up about a 70,000th stylus. About a 70,000 stylus would do it. I was able to go around that much quicker than I was through the other one. So that might actually be the best way. The other way, you're just almost certain not to mess up. Okay. We've got the pocket cut in there. Let's test our diamond and see what we got. Okay. Now on these, instead of putting them in pointed, I'm going to round the ends of them. So what I do is take my file and just kind of clean the ends up to that radius. You will notice if you look at most inlays, they're slightly rounded on the end. If they're sharp on the end, that means that somebody either went in and knifed the corner out to handle the sharp edges. You have to have a really good hand to do that. I never did develop a good enough feel for doing that particular way. Okay. Let's check my size on my stylus. Say if you make those 150 to 200, 70, 2, alright, I got one 5,000 smaller. Stick it in there. I'm gonna I like to put, like this one's 167 or thereabout, 250 on the other side. I like to keep the Hagen stylus on the other end. That way I'm not always looking for something. You could actually get by and never break your setup if you wanted to. Leave these patterns in there and switch these two back and forth. If you've got a steady hand, the thing you've got to remember is you've got to hold pressure against the outside of the pattern. If you don't hold that pressure against the outside of the pattern, you'll wind up messing your part up. Now cutting a pocket out, it don't really matter. That's what we're doing. We're cutting a pocket out in this board. Since I'm only having to cut a small amount on the outside, I'm going ahead and going 25,000 with a small bit. Raise it up. You always want to make sure that bit's clearing whatever you're the outside of the pocket and nothing else that it's going to hit. You'll break the bit right off. Okay. That is right for that inlay. Just a little hand touching, I can lay that in there, almost no glue line. I could get by with putting that one into using this method. Pretty concentric because it'll go either way. That's a pressed fit, no glue line. Just be a perfect inlay. So we know the size stylus to cut the pocket out is 165 thousandths for that part. You always have to check because it would seem like they'd all be the same, but they're not. But they're usually close. 165, 170, so on. And if you go and cut this out with a 70 thousandth stylus, cut your part out, it's even going to be different. See, it's just about no glue line. You just can't get much better than that. But it's a simple part, straight lines on the edges. Now for the for this shape here, this diamond, I prefer to go with even a looser stylus and lay that part in loose. That way I can keep those real sharp corners on that part and not mess up the curved shape on the edges. The only real way to accomplish that is to go with black combinations. There's a black pigment for epoxy. It dyes the epoxy black. So if you lay it into ebony, like this here, you could have a big glue line around that and you would never be able to see it because it's going into ebony. So I like to use black combinations. It lets me get by with more. But then some cues, you know, it'd be just nice to build them straight into the wood like that one. Just lay them right in there. No glue line. Or such a small one you can't see it, no dye needed to mix with the glue. That's the kind of inlay you can do, and it comes down to a matter of how good your patterns are. I got this point pattern cut by a guy that's got a computer system. He's trying to set up to cut all of my patterns for me. So hopefully in the future I'll be able to offer everybody computer cut patterns. Maybe even some new designs from time to time. It uses a stepper motor, so it kind of makes a little noise tracking in there. Okay, so you have the general idea on that. Maybe we ought to cut something into a cube. Okay, I'm going to take and start rounding the edges on all of these inlays. I went ahead and set back up this morning and cut 4 more out. I'm going to lay 8 of these in a Bacote butt. That fit was so good that I'm not going to need to use any black glue to hide the glue line, so I'm going to go right on into Bacote with this. Taking every one of them and just kind of rounding those ends. Then if I want them back sharp to where they look sharp, I can kind of just go along there like that with them. That way I've got them short enough to fall in, and if you look real close, you might would see a glue line at the end of it then. Like I say, if you're going into ebony, there's a black powder pigment, and I can sell you some of it if you can't find it. It's not real expensive, and it just colors your epoxy jet black. So if you're going into ebony, you can get by with a whole lot. If you start going into Bacote and Purple Heart like that piece of wood we cut that diamond in last night, that can get to be pretty difficult. So At first, my recommendation would be stick with the ebonies until you really get all of your styluses worked out and everything to where you know what makes a good fit, how much hand fitting you have to do. Because to get no glue line, you've got to do a little sanding on the part, maybe even a little touch-up on the wall of the pocket. So it's just like having to hand fit those points. You've got to hand fit these parts also. Although there's usually not a whole lot of hand fitting to do, especially if you go into ebony. You can go with a little smaller stylus and cut your pocket into the cue a little larger, and then you can let the black glue take care of the line. I recommend if you want to use multiple inlays, like go ivory into something else, and keep doing that. You know, being real steady with your stylus against the outside of your female template. You have to hold it up against the outside and then just keep increasing the size of the stylus to get a smaller part. You'll just have to figure all of that out on what size you're wanting it in there and so on. But I would recommend going with black combinations. In other words, if you wanted a red wood on the outside, or I would go with the black wood on the outside, a black border, and then you could go with, say, some red wood or purple heart or whatever, you know, a colored veneer, or just anything. And then go with another black color and then to another color. As long as you have that black combination there, you can use that black pigment in the epoxy to color it. Now, whether you're cutting a point out or these small parts, it's no different. It's all the same. The point is just a bigger V groove. It's just a bigger V groove. And it's a bigger pocket. Very similar stylus sizes. We'll cut the point out. The thing with points, since it's so narrow, you will wind up having to cut quite a bit off of the end. Like this pattern is showing it's approximately 10 inches long, but it's only going to cut a point about that long. So it's going to knock that end off right there. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut, I just cut it in there 9 inches. I'm going to cut this point in to the front of the cue 4 times, maybe lay 4 small diamonds on the end of it, and I'm going to lay these 8 big diamonds all the way around the bottom of the cue. We'll get the cue and show you how to set it up to cut the pocket pin. Okay, so you want to slide your table off here. Then I want to take my cue down here. I want to look and see where I want to start inlaying this thing at. So I want to start inlaying it right here. Take and make me a pencil line. The spot I want to lay it, just to kind of give me a straight edge. That's just an estimate. Then I want to measure how long this part is. This part is 1 inch, 700 thousandths. Let's check a few of them to make sure I'm real close to that. I must not have rounded that one as good as some of the other ones. 1 inch, 675 thousandths roughly. Okay. Now I want to take and measure the distance between my rings here. 2,975 thousandths, or 2 inches, 975 thousandths. Okay. 2,975, 1,675. Let's figure out the difference between that. About an inch and 200 thousandths, inch and 300 thousandths. Inch 300, that means 650, 650 thousandths. So I'll take my calipers, put me a little line there, take my calipers, measure up to it, mark me a line there. Come and see if I figured that right. Yep. I need to really put me 2 good points there. And that will show me that I've got that part going in there centered. Okay, let me reposition the camera, show you a couple of things here. Okay, what we're going to do is slide the cube through here and lock the small end down in the chuck, or the small area, just somewhere along the forearm. I'm not going to lock it real tight, just kind of snug for the time being. Now I want to slide the tailstock up here. I want to get a little better close-up of that particular shot. Okay. Move my collet and wrench. Now I want to take the regular live center out of here. And I have this center here, which is a dead center. Now it is an eccentric. In other words, this point is off center to this. I forget how many thousandths, but the point is, if you're working the butt end, you want to stick this in there and turn that down. Really, for working these short inlays, you could use your pointed live center. But when you work a point, if you don't use this, your bit is going to come out about 70 thousandths deeper at one end than it is at the other, which is going to leave you a very shallow inlay on the end of your point. So you would use this with the point up if you were working on the small end of the cue. That way you're raising the cue up almost level under this multi-pro tool that's traveling over the top. You want the bit to be traveling about level. So for the butt part, I want it to go down instead of up. Okay, I want to slide that through here. Now I want to kind of rotate the cue till I get that part up that I wanted. Back here and find one of my holes that I'd already used. I want to twist. Let me reposition again. Okay. I want to twist this around till I get that straight up. Okay. Decided I wanted to adjust that just a little. I want to line it up with these silver inlays I put in here. I basically put silver stitch rings. Okay, I've got this locked down. I want to come back here and mark the 8 spots. Already got my 4 marks. I need to go over every 3. I'm marking my indexings with my pencil. Okay, they're marked. Now what I have to do, I have to get my other pattern, my female pattern. Okay, I put my female pattern on. Okay, and I put the, start lining it up. Take the blade down real close where I can see what I'm doing. And I rock this back and forth to each end of my pattern. Till I get it centered between those 2 lines. Okay, now I lock my pattern down, make sure it's straight on my table, and I'm ready to go in and cut the parts in, or the pockets. Okay, I've got you a little close-up. I want to turn it on and I want to just start outlining it. I've got my 35 thousandths cutter in there. Go down till I touch. Remember, quarter turn. There's 1 turn, 1/4, half. So I'll just call it 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. Which means I'm now 100 thousandths deep. 9. 112 and a half. 125. Another turn. measure the thickness of one of the inlays, a little over 200 thousandths, 230. So it looks like around 200 thousandths is the. Now when you're going through this, there's a little high spot in the middle of the inlay, so I've been 150. I'll go on to about 175 or so. But one more. 187. So I went in about 3/16 of an inch. And that's with a 30 thousandths cutter. I mean a 35 thousandths. So I'm able to go real deep with these special cutters I have here. And they're cheap. Like the price right now compared to end mills is $25 for a card of 10 of them. I'm going to check it and make sure I got no problem going that deep. I'm going to lay 8 of these around it. They're going to be tight, so I'm going to go in and do the same thing again. One, 2. Always try to run the same direction. Some say that you should run clockwise, cutting the pocket in, counterclockwise, cutting the other, or vice versa, but I just like running counterclockwise all the time. Holding that stylus against the outside edge. Now I'm not going to waste the film to do that, but I'm going to go all the way around through here and outline all the parts. Then I'm going to come back, switch over, and hog them all out. So I'm going to stop the film and go ahead and outline the rest of the 6 that I've got to cut in. And all the way around, so I want to go in now with my hogging bit. And I want to hog them all down the same level, so go in till it touches. Like that's where I outline it, and I knock the middle out right quick, just like we cut that thing out on the. Well, we can go ahead and go a hash. I've switched to the 16th bit. I've switched to the 250 thousandth stylus. I'm really notching me out a nice pocket here. what you got all the way around, just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know I want to go 5 deep. That's where I want to hog them to. 1. 2 full turns, 2.5. Another pocket cut. I'll stop the video and go ahead and finish the rest of the pocket. And you can see all the pockets are cut in. Can't you picture how nice that's going to look with that ivory in there and that silver at each end? It's going to be a pretty cue. So you have to start hand fitting every part now. These corners, I didn't quite round them enough to get them in there. So I set the part up there and check it. Look at it both ways. A little more off the corners. And I'm kind of curving this file as I'm going. Just a little more. These are the differences that make it a handmade cue. It's what makes you to where you can look somebody right in the eye and tell them that you hand fit all of those inlays. And I'll flip right over and do the next one till I've went all the way around. Now I don't stick them down in very far because you might have a hard time getting them out. I just get them pressed in there, and then I take and mix up some epoxy. I like to mix the West system up. I may even take me a vise. When I put the glue down in the pocket, I'll fill that pocket up with glue, or just about up, and I'll press that inlay down in there, and then I'll take the whole cue and take the little vise. I normally take it in my other shop and use the big vise. Set the cue in there and just press the inlays down in there really good. You know, make sure that you really mash them in there good. Remember the wax paper. And then the surgical tubing, just wrap it up just like you did the points. So you should have the end of your cue will look just like this point blank did that we cut in. See, here is our point blank that we cut out. Now I could take a bandsaw and just kind of cut some of these edges off and then throw it in between centers and take my router and real light passes until I have trimmed that all the way down and barely skimmed the zebra wood where all the points are in there. And then once I've got that, I chop this back off, get it faced off, and then attach it to the handle like I showed you the other day. Now for getting a point lined up with this, what I like to do, to where I know that my point is in line with the bottom piece, after I've got these in, I'll come and put my tool in my tool post right here and come in and set it right at the front corner of one of these and put me a little mark, make sure I'm right. Then I'll roll it down with this locked in place down to the forearm. And I'll kind of take my tool and make a little scratch on the forearm because I know it'll be at the same height as one of these diamonds. And that shows me where to lay the first point in line with it. I'm not going to bother to cut the points out. It's the same thing. You're just going around inside your V-groove pattern just like you cut these small parts out, then you cut the pockets into the front to match it. I'll cover making patterns just a second. You see, this is clear plexiglass or Lexan like you can buy at your building supply place. What you do is take a piece of graph paper and lay this over it to where you have your marks. Then you come in and put you a little dot at each corner. Then take a straight edge or some engineering curves, which are little plastic curves, little pieces of plastic that have curves on the edge depending on what shape you want. You hold it down and take a scribe and scratch it in there. Let me grab a scribe right quick. And then with holding it along the straight edge, you'll scratch this out. And then you'll take this rifling file, which has got a V-groove on the front of it. It's shaped like a V. And you go in and really clean that out until you have a good V. Now this only serves as a temporary pattern to make your master off of. Then you lock this up here on your plate. And put your pointed stylus in it. And just trace around it. Lock you a piece of brass or plastic or whatever you're going to cut your permanent pattern into down on your table. And make you a V-groove pattern. First thing with a 60-degree V-cutter. If you need a 60-degree V-cutter, they probably run $15 to $20. I can pick you up a solid carbide one if you need one, if you decide you want to make your own patterns. I'm trying to work a deal with a guy to make my patterns by computer. And if he'll do that, then he can scan in what you send me and make one off of it. At any rate, let's go on. You cut your V-groove into the brass. Then you take the same thing and you take another piece and you lay something under it to where you don't damage your table. And you take that same V-groove like you were going to cut a part out of a cue and you notch all the way through it. That gives you your slotted pattern. So the first thing you do is you make the V-groove pattern like this, off of this, using this for your master. Your V-groove cutter down here on your table, you just cut it in there. Then you use the same master and you go all the way through and punch all the way through a piece of brass. Or you can, there's another way of doing it, but it's much harder. So this is your best bet. Punch almost all the way through and then clean up the bottom, sand it out, just like you were cutting those ivory parts out. Then you have a master pattern for your own odd shape. Something different. Hopefully the gentleman will do them on the computer reasonable for me. He sent me this point, and I got to say that point is cut much straighter than the point I made by hand. His edge is not quite as smooth. It's a little ripply, but I don't think that that'll affect it. You can kind of hear it run up it. I could probably just clean that up with a rifling. With the rifling file just a little. It would probably run just about as smooth as the other. Well, that's about all the time we have here. If you run into any questions or anything you don't understand, then be sure and give me a call, and I'll try my best to explain it to you on the phone. You know, the main thing you got to realize with doing these, this inlay work is details. You've really got to give attention to details. Like hand filing those little parts on the end to get them to where they just go in just right. Gluing it in, mixing the black epoxy, using all the quality materials you can. Really turn out some nice work. And I just ask you to do me a favor. I've started a collection, you know, a photo album here. I want to collect pictures of cues that people have built, so send me some pictures of some of your nicer work. And a business card or something, and I'll put it in my album. I've only had just a few ever send me the pictures, even though I've had dozens and dozens of people tell me how nice a cue they're building with my lathes. Now that I have the inlay machine, I really want to see some pretty inlay work sent back to me where I can make a little thing, and if people are interested in your cues, then they'll have pictures of what you do right there along with your business card or your brochure or whatever you put together. Hey, I just appreciate you giving me the chance to teach you a little bit about inlay work, a little bit. I thought I'd flip back on the camera. It's been a few days since I did this, and show you this butt section. Went in here and laid the ivory diamonds in, then I come back and laid turquoise. Slapped up some reconstituted or imitation turquoise or whatever you want to call this stuff. If you need to buy any inlay material in slabs like ivory or turquoise, I can sell you that. See, I laid the 8 diamonds around and put the sterling silver dots in them. Then I went in here and laid the ivory points in. Put a turquoise at the end, turquoise here, and then laid some silver dots. To get my circular pattern, all I did was lay the full washer there and washer here to give me a couple of different size circles. Now I just got to put the joint on the cue, and I think I'm going to lay me another silver dot here, one in that diamond. Put my joint on, match me a couple of shafts to it, cut my wrap groove and spray it. So that's what the cue will look like when it's done.